So, how will video client meetings proceed into the future? Here's an article from a law journal, law industry journal, that talks about video conferencing. Love it, hate it, need it. So, for some professions, it's a necessary evil, and some professions, people are liking it. But regardless, the question is, how will this be used once the pandemic is behind us, which is getting behind us very, very quickly? The attorneys that were interviewed by this article says many clients prefer to use a web platform that permits us to see each other rather than phone. And the reason why is because it's more personal. When you're talking to somebody on a phone, you don't get the context of facial expressions or other visual clues about what's being said. The ability to see each other presents a greater opportunity to bond with the client. This particular firm uses video conferences for intake interviews with new clients. Another attorney said, I think video meetings can be successful. It takes effort for a client to do a face-to-face meeting. Here's what we're finding with teleclient is if you're going to do a meeting with somebody, it's got to be very important. Somebody has to travel, even if it only takes 20 minutes to get to your office, they still have to drive there for 20 minutes and then spend the time at the office. No one's going to do that for a 5 or 10 minute meeting, right? If you want to cover something that's only going to take 5 or 10 minutes, that meeting arrangement may never come to pass if it has to be done in person. And over the phone, if the relationship isn't already established, sometimes people don't want to take the time to do a phone call. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. Most attorneys that were interviewed for this article said that it's better than a phone, and in some cases better than in person. One of the things we're finding for meetings that presumably would be in person in the past is you can actually have a more efficient Tetris of time for these meetings. And what I mean by that is to arrange that meeting, somebody has to, if they're a client, get dressed, leave the house, plan for other things. If they're doing a video conference, they can literally take the last bite of their lunch and start their meeting right then. There's no gap in between. And then right when it's done, they can go play with their kids, or they can go wash their car, or whatever the case might be. It actually creates a lot closer of time where instead of having to arrange an hour, hour and a half worth of time for an in-person meeting or longer, they can squeeze it in 20 minutes of their schedule. People with whom I've never would have connected are easy connections and conversations over video, right? Because somebody, again, don't want to do it by phone because it's impersonal. One of the other things is the acceptance of the medium. This particular attorney said, every part of my practice has been taken over by video conferences. Client conferences with the courts, depositions, and mediations. So courts are using this as well. Many court systems use video exclusively for first hearings or other types of non-urgent arrangements with the court. Over the past year, I've used video conferencing for matters that I would never consider doing remotely in the past. That's the key. Over the past year, everybody, professionals, courts, and consumers are considering this that they never would have done before because it just seems so natural. And whether it's a Zoom meeting with work or a video conference with a professional, telemedicine is something that now is commonplace, and it can extend to other industries. And you can see from our list of industries that we work with, it doesn't have to be something that's highly professional. It could be an accountant, it can be an investigator, it could be insurance, it could be building contractors, vehicle titles, all the different categories we have, and we're always adding to the categories. You can arrange to meet with a professional, short period of time, 10, 15 minutes, get the information answered by a professional, and you know who that person is. It's not an anonymous voice over the phone, and they can maybe look things up while they're talking to you and show you things. If they're looking something up online, maybe looking up a document, maybe they have notes, maybe you have notes. It's easier to share those with a video conference rather than on the phone where you're trying to describe something that you can't see. For attorneys, one of the downsides is video conferencing is cutting my billable court time down significantly. Maybe that's a downside for the attorney, but it's a good thing for the client. Some firms are using video conferencing for intra-office meetings between different locations within their organization. The lawyers that talked about Advantage talked about servicing clients. focusing on counseling and representing of healthcare providers, sometimes the telephone call just doesn't cut it. I had only spoken to a potential client and was having serious concerns to whether take on his representation. I suggested a video conference and a college joined us. I needed to get a better sense of this person as I would in a person-to-person meeting. I valued the input of a third party. The insight was invaluable. There's another reason. If you have a third party in your organization, or maybe two people on the client side, right? It's hard to do that on the phone. Yeah, you could do a conference call, but it's harder to understand the context of that conference call. If you do it by video and you have two people, a husband and wife as clients, maybe two attorneys, it's much easier to get more input, and you don't have to have everybody at the same place at the same time. You also can extend the availability of expertise to a larger geographic area. So if you have an expert in your office and maybe somebody else that might be valuable to include on the call that lives in another town, instead of having to get everybody together with that client in one place, you can do it remotely by video. It's been accepted as a normal thing by almost the entire demographic of clients, professionals, vendors. Every aspect of industry is seeing video conferencing as an acceptable use. Even telemedicine, which has a very high degree of requirement for personal information security. So if it can work in telemedicine, it can pretty much work anywhere. So the upside for teleclient type conference consultation can extend to many other industries and professionals, and it allows both parties to get a more efficient use of the time without having a high expense for office space, travel time, and even just taking time away from other billable or valuable activities that a person might be doing.